Hi, I'm Dana Han-Klein here with J.A. Bayona for A Monster Calls. This movie is about sort of love and loss, and those are really universal themes, but I think we all deal with them differently. So how did you approach telling the story in a way that's going to connect with like the widest audience possible?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because I think the film talks a lot about interpretation. It's how the world of adults is interpreted by a kid. And I think in that sense, the film also tries to leave some gaps in order to leave the audience to interpret the story by themselves, which is always the kind of storytelling that I like, you know. It's interesting when you see the film with an audience, and when the film finishes, it seems that the people bring back the film with them back home, you know. It's a movie that stays with them, you know, and that's very interesting. It tries, that's my intention, that the film keeps growing on their minds when the film finishes.
Yeah, I thought it was definitely like, even being in a smaller audience for it, like people were connecting to very different things, and like I was sobbing at something that somebody else might not have been sobbing at.
There's so many characters, and everyone has a different position in the film, and you can relate to these different positions. You can relate to the mother, you can relate to the son, you can relate to the husband, you know, to the father.
Right, to the grandmother even.
Exactly,
it's definitely, it kind of felt like a fairy tale without a fairy tale ending.
Which is what life is about.
Exactly, but it's also sort of very adult themes, or I guess things that you'd hope to not deal with as an adult, being dealt with at the eyes of a child. So I'd love to know what made you want to tell this story.
Well, I think when you read the book, it's such an emotional journey, the kind of stories that I like, because I really like to do movies that create an impact, those movies that stay with the audience at the end of the film. And also I thought that it was very interesting the way that the film is also, it's about storytelling. It's about what I do as a filmmaker. And I love the idea of doing this film and having to dig into that world, try to understand what is the meaning of what I do as a filmmaker.
One of my favorite storytelling tools you used was the 2D animation sequences. And I'd love to talk about sort of what brought you to deciding that those were going to be the way the monster told his stories in a lot of the cases.
I think that this is an idea that you cannot find really in the book, but somehow the animations that connect the artistic world, the inner world of Conor with the real world. You know, it's like the bridge between these two worlds. Conor is trying to escape using animation, using drawings, and somehow these animations come alive. And at the end of the film, these animations or these drawings connect the characters in a very meaningful way. It was like a way of melting these two worlds, the real world and the fantasy world.
It goes back to something you'd mentioned about like leaving room for interpretation. One thing I loved about those was like the characters, even within the animation, didn't have super defined features, right? It's not like this is this person. It's like here's a prince, here's a queen, here's a whatever.
Exactly, and you know, sometimes when you see films with stories inside the story, and when they use actors, sometimes for me it creates like the wrong impact, you know, because I think it's distracting. I think the characters of the film are MacDougall, Felicity Jones, you know, and when you see another actors playing those stories, it creates like a
discord between it.
Exactly, yeah.
So on the opposite end, you at the same time had to sort of really define the monster and the creature, and it's an intimidating character, but it also has to be sort of reassuring and protecting. So could you talk about sort of hitting the visual style and like the final character design of that?
We did a lot of designs trying to find the best. The more designs we did, we were more sure that it had to stay simple. Like Jim Kay's illustrations in the original book. There's something powerful and poetic about that. So there was a moment that we thought, let's make it simple, let's keep it simple. It's going to be more powerful. You leave more space to the audience to interpret the monster themselves, instead of telling the audience that it's going to have 8 legs or 3 eyes, you know.
And then on the other side of that, in terms of interpretation, I love that there are a lot of understated moments, for me at least, where it's like this character clearly is like overflowing with emotion and doesn't know how to say what they want to say. And again, I might be imposing my thoughts on this, but
which is always good.
Yeah, but the most beautiful parts were like the breakthrough moments. And so how did you sort of work with you have an amazing cast, and how did you work with them to sort of guide those moments and leave room for interpretation for the audience, but also sort of hit these points without hitting the point of sort of melodrama?
Well, I think that one of the things that I love about the film is how effective is silence. It's one of those movies that the most silent moments are more effective. So we try to build up this intensity more around silence and nothingness. There's a very important moment in the film. I'm not going to tell you about it, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, which is about the nothing, when everything disappears. The screen is pitch black. And I thought that was like the visual motif that will lead the intensity of the story. It's quite intense, but it's very rewarding at the end. So there's also the use of music in a very subtle way in order to give relief to the journey, in order to make it uplifting at the end. So it's a movie that it's about pain, but it's also about healing. And I think that's the emotion that stays at the end with the audience.
I'd love to know, who's one of your favorite sort of fictional heroes or heroines?
Yeah.
Childhood ones, sorry. Yeah.
So characters, characters.
Because Conor sort of builds this whole world of a character that...
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be Superman.
Fair. Who doesn't?
Of course. So I spent my whole childhood like jumping on my sofa with a red cape.
Which there's a great jumping sofa, a different interpretation moment in the movie, but it's a...
Yeah, but that was one of the characters from my childhood.
And then who would you say your personal sort of monster would manifest as?
Your personal monster is always yourself. It's like you need to fight yourself. You need to always try to find out who you are and at the moment and I like that. It's like this film is about contradiction. It tells you about monsters as scary things, but at the same time as a solution. So you always need to fight yourself. There is a beautiful moment in the story where Conor destroys something. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I know what what I'm talking about. And it's very interesting because Conor destroys what he needs. Somehow we do it all the time. We destroy what we need. And that's human. This is where humanity lies in the story. In that contradiction.
And I think it's not even knowing what we need and then hitting that moment of like regret and realization afterwards, because that's the scene you're referring to was one of those moments where when it kind of comes out of it, I was just like, oh, that's bad. Like, exactly, I've been there. I can relate to that.
But it's a moment that you need to go through in order to start to build up again. I think it's that rage, that feeling of rage that Conor has, which deals a lot with kids nowadays, because kids nowadays, they know the things we're talking about in the film. They know about rage, they know about loneliness, they know about self-blame, and this film talks about these things in a very accessible way. And it's beautiful how somehow helps them to deal with that. It's about destroying, but after destroying, it's about constructing, And you can see how Conor at the end of the film is ready to construct and build up his world from scratch in a beautiful way.
The other thing about the world is sort of that it reminded me, just as a person or an audience member, is like, everyone has their own story, and everyone is bringing their own story to it. And I like the monster's first tale. And it's not like morally ambiguous, but it's still this sort of leaving. Even that was like a micro moment of leaving things open to interpretation. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this film did it beautifully. So congratulations on that. I do want to know about so Patrick Ness wrote the screenplay and the novelization of it, and then it was all based on another idea. So was there an additional sort of responsibility there?
Sure. I mean it's a big responsibility getting the idea of someone who couldn't write the book and make it possible, but somehow I think that Patrick understood that it had to be his own. It couldn't be him writing the book of another person. So he understood that it was all about finding his truth, which is what the story is about, finding your truth and express it. So I think because of that, he understood that I had to be the same. And in my case, it had to be the same. It was, I'm going to get your book, I'm going to get your script, and I'm going to do it my own. I'm going to try to find my truth. This is why the film is a little different, even though it's very faithful to the book. It's a little different, and it tells the story one step forward, talking about legacy, talking about art, talking about how somehow we are able to transcend death using art. That's the only thing that can defeat death, art. Art. Nowadays, we're talking about Sigourney, who died, and she somehow is alive when we talk about her.
Right, and through this legacy that you guys have added to. in that sense, in terms of legacy, like if you could go back to the beginning of the shoot and tell yourself one thing, like either reassure yourself or warn yourself, or
That's a very good question. I would say calm down.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. And the movie's full of a lot of sort of, not dark, but like serious moments, but what was your favorite sort of light moment?
Life moment?
Light moment.
Light
or
moment.
life moment.
No, I think light moment is definitely the ending. That's the scene that you cannot find in the book, and it's where you can find light at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the journey. There is a beautiful line that I took from my own father. My father taught me to draw, and he was always telling me life is in the eyes. And this is exactly what you see in the final frame. You know, you can see the light in the eyes of Conor. You can see that he's prepared to face the future.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and thanks so much for talking to me.